we go. Thank you very much. My name is Danny Zaslavsky. I own a car dealership in Kansas City. A lot of familiar faces in the room. Thank you. Today we're going to be talking about some really modern processes, and there's no better person to talk about it than the person innovating from the very front line. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Kevin Cravo and give him a minute to kind of tell about himself.
Hi, I'm Kevin Cravo with Royal Automotive, variable director in Tucson, Arizona. So I oversee all 7 of our stores, all sales operations.
Okay. So I want to get right to it and define kind of why we are here. So one of the things is to understand how you can innovate from the front line to dominate your market. So what do we mean by that? I believe that when you create technology, it's meant to scale process, not the other way around. I grew up in a dealership that often went to trade shows and bought technology and then asked them, what do we do with this and how is that going to then influence our process? And then we just sat passenger to the advice of the technology company. When we took a different seat in the driver's seat and saying, here's our process and we're going to continue to be curious about it and how are we going to continue to improve it, and then went out with the eye to find technology that would not only improve our process but then be able to scale it, it really changed the game for us. What a modern appraisal process and solution can do for acquisition, gross, and churn. And one of the things that we're going to mention is a shift when you are dealing with a group versus a single store of right car, right price, which means when you are bidding a car in a store, the sales manager may have bias in saying, you know what, this is the right car for my lot, or this isn't because I didn't do well on the last one, versus right car, right lot. Meaning, perhaps this vehicle might do better at a sister store across the street. We're going to talk about benefits of enterprise management. Sometimes it's called centralized appraising, so we're going to get into that. But enterprise management is really just bringing in other signals to understand how the group will perform and what the exit strategy is of that car. And then last but not least, how to continue to wean off the auction and continue to buy from the public. Okay, so I mentioned this earlier, and I kind of want to bring it home because I'm a dealer. I continue to stay a dealer because I really believe that innovation happens on the front line. So innovation, the way we define it, is it's just people that have ideas, that create processes, and then they create technology, and that equals innovation. So for those of you that are dealers in the room or have been dealers in the room, you have ideas all the time when you are wanting to improve something. Technology, again, allows you to scale that across your enterprise. Staying a dealer really helps me stay on the front line of that because sometimes the answer is so much simpler than I make it out to be when I'm thinking about how can I create technology. Something that my dad used to do is he would say, hey, I bought a building. What business are we going to put in it? Right? That is like an old entrepreneurial way of thinking. And we certainly figured it out. But that's not starting with customer experience. And what we want to do is start with customer experience. And sometimes that customer is the person buying the car, but sometimes the customer is the person selling the car. So with that, I want to introduce Royal Automotive Group.
Yeah, so Royal Automotive has been around for almost 5 decades now. Local family owned in Tucson, Arizona. And we started in 1976, and still original. The Royal Kia store is actually the oldest in the country. AZ001 is our dealer code, if anybody knows the Kia codes. So we've been around for a while, and Q4 last year we went to Used Car Week, and we felt like we needed an entire revamp with our used car operation. We knew there was opportunity that we weren't capturing. So went there just kind of on a whim. Actually went to San Diego, ended up meeting Danny and his team, and we went into a full-blown reset, relaunch at the beginning of this year in January. And that's kind of what we're going to share today, just a little bit of our journey, because we've learned a lot, and along the way I think we've done some good that hopefully some of you take back into your stores and find some of those KPI metrics moving the right way like we have. So in part of that, we launched what we call our CAP team, which we'll get into kind of what that acronym is, kind of how that works, and our process flow with that. But it was really just a complete used car reset, which we feel like we're in control of. In today's world, whether it's F&I, you got all the things with FTC and the bank regulations, or new cars and the OEMs, we felt like we are in control of used cars, and honestly felt like we weren't doing as well as we could have as a group. We felt like there was opportunity that we're glad to say we feel like we're doing a better job tapping into. So that's where the CAP team was kind of the genesis of that, to start going after some of the missed opportunities that we felt we had. So just to kind of expand on that, one major pain point I had is that I have anywhere 15 to 18 managers, all appraising cars. And if I left it up to all of them, if they were all in here right now, we pulled up the car, we appraised it, they'd all come back with a different number. And we can have the debate on who's right or wrong or why the number, and everybody has a good reason, but it's hard for me to control that or to make sure that we aren't missing trades or putting it on the right dollars when you just leave it up to 18 different managers and the emotion of the deal. So we really wanted to kind of standardize it more so at the corporate level, and make sure that we weren't missing trades, putting too much in it, missing recon because they never got off their desk to actually go and appraise the car. We felt like we were far too reliant on auctions. So part of our success journey in this for this year is that we were buying a lot of vehicles from auction, from enterprise, rental cars, etc. And we've all but weaned off of that now through our private party acquisition strategies, which has had a big impact on our margins, which we'll cover there. And again, we just wanted to have it more standardized at the corporate level. So that was the cap.
In this last one, I think is a really big one. It's like that personal bias. What Kevin said earlier, when I give a VIN number to my tower and I say, appraise this car, but don't talk to the salesman who are next to you, you obviously get a different number, but then you also ask, like, hey, what'd you look at, right? Some look at MMR, some look at book, some look at comps, some look at price to market, cost to market, some look at rank, and so forth. Todd, who spoke before here, asked, like, what is your appraisal process and is it written down? That is really some of the early curiosity that we had in order to create what we call a net effect. The net effect is here's where you are, here's where you're trying to get, and that journey is, quite frankly, your strategy, right? How do you get there? You want to speak to the opportunity you guys are seeking?
Sure, yeah, so when we started out, we said, what does success look like? Where do we feel like the opportunity is? And we felt just based on our margins, based on all the different 20 groups we belong to, looking at our used car front end, we knew we could move the needle $1,000 a car front end and do it the right way. So that was the first piece of that. We have 6 stores, as you see there. So we average about 50 per store. Obviously, some do 100, some do 20, but over 12 months. So in total, our goal was to go after that 3.6 million just front end to realize that margin. So that does include obviously the increase in volume and market share, which we've seen, F&I, but just purely getting better at acquiring the right cars, increasing turn to increase our margin, and go after that opportunity.
So this is something that I think other areas of life have taught me, but I'm going to apply it to business because I think the two are very similar. Pain pushes, vision pulls. And here's what I mean by that. So sometimes in life you reach a point where it's like, man, this hurts. Whether it's emotional pain, business pain, family pain, whatever it is. And hopefully we stay curious and open to that pain and we start thinking, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to correct this for the future? And then you start having visions of what that future might look like. And then hopefully that vision grabs a hold of you and it starts pulling you. And we know the difference, right? When you have a great idea of when vision starts to pull you, you say, I'm gonna build this thing or start this thing or marry that person or whatever that is. And we know that feeling of pain pushing. And so we took that and also switched to an idea, which actually I'm gonna have Kevin share this idea.
Yeah, so it just kind of goes back to the overarching theme of just instead of having a lot of side doors between our different dealerships and rooftops where we're a pretty good sized dealer group in our market, instead of all of them acting differently within their stores, different appraisers, that we are now just one group working in unison together, getting the right cars to the right lot and flowing that all through our corporate CAP centralized team.
So it's something that was shared with me, which I really like. Wasn't my idea, but it's we behaved like a group of dealers. Today we behave like a dealer group, and I know that because I own several stores, and I know what it feels like. That contention, competition is obviously healthy, but the contention is what really hurt and eroded some of the profits. So here's a typical, this is like what I grew up with. This is a typical appraisal process, right? So start line, you appraise, you choose the disposition, you acquire it, you merchandise it, recondition it, you syndicate it, you hopefully manage it, you sell it, and you look at some reporting. And this is a fairly typical way of what I call the road to the sale when you're buying a car. Well then, hopefully you do a lot of deals and rinse and repeat, right? Over and over and over. One of the things that really changed the way we started thinking about the buying and selling is when we started thinking it as a cycle. And that cycle we call vehicle life cycle management. At the top of vehicle life cycle management, it starts with having a buying plan. And that buying plan is really about creating the most ideal inventory for your lot. And each lot has different superpowers, different abilities to buy and sell cars. So the buying plan should have a lot of different signals that power it, because if you remain curious to the software that you're currently using, some of it relies heavily on your own sales. Some of it, in your own sales is a good indicator, but it can also be an echo chamber if you buy what you sell and sell what you buy, right? There are other indicators that you can get from software companies or on your own, like market demand information. Competitor demand information, what's selling at other stores that you perhaps compete with, and can you get that market share? Audience is a really big one. Jason Rice is in the room, understands the value of putting an asset and tying it to a customer versus just taking a customer and tying it to an asset. Those are all signals that when you are creating a buying plan can begin to understand, where do I have gaps, so that when I buy that inventory, what then happens? Your customer acquisition cost goes down because you can start selling more vehicles and holding gross and hopefully outperforming the market, not just underperforming it. And so that cycle that begins with the buying plan then takes you into appraisal, acquisition, merchandising, syndication, audience, selling, reporting, analytics, but every part of this process feeds back to the buy plan. So Kevin, would you mind sharing a little bit about the journey of the process? Because part of it is an emotional process, right? Sales managers may have not been happy right away.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack here, but so at the beginning, when I came back from used car week in November, December, it said, well, we think we're going to go to a centralized appraisal team. We're going to change the system that we've used for all used cars, for appraising, syndicating, everything for the last decade or so. My team, everybody, managers, all the way through GSMs, used car managers, they were ready to vote me off the island. They thought I got to San Diego, I drank something funny, I came back, and they're like, what is going on? We cannot survive under this new way that you're trying to create here. So I'm happy to say that everybody in that who was ready to vote me off the island is still with us. And now if I were to walk all this back, they would also probably feel as passionate about not doing so. So nobody likes change. So at the end of the day, I had to make the call for the greater good, and we're glad that we did. I believe they are too. So really started with, I'll touch on a few things here. One is that CAP team, and then I'll talk a little bit about how we got off of the auction enterprise and really leaned in on our private party strategy. So as far as the CAP team goes, we call it that because it's centralized appraisal, acquisition, and pricing. So none of our frontline managers, including the GSMs at each store, are really involved with that portion of it. Of course, we want their feedback. It's collaborative. But they are not pricing, they are not buying, they are not appraising any vehicles, putting the ACV on any vehicle. So kind of what that looks like is at each of our stores, we use VINCUE's technology now, where the store manager, team leader, it can even be a senior salesperson, service drive, really doesn't matter. They'll go out, scan the VIN, load it up into the system, put in their notes of what they think it needs, and then that pushes to our CAP centralized team. It's like our main hub. I think we got a photo of it coming up here, but so we built out this cool room. There's 4 or 5 or 6 of them at any given time, and that team has 5 minutes or less to put in the ACV. We time it. The managers know, they know. So we don't want to bottleneck it. Certainly, earlier in the session was really great, talking about the friction, making sure that everybody, is getting that customer what they want quickly. So we didn't want that information to go into that central hub and it's 30, 45 minutes until they're getting a number. Obviously, that wouldn't work. So they load it up. It goes into the central team. The central team pulls it up on monitors, TV screens, and then they work as a team to push that ACV back to that frontline manager. And then that frontline manager, we give them a leeway. They can under allow 500 or they can over allow 1,000. But that's the only bandwidth we give them within that ACV. So if the CAP team feels like it's worth 28 grand, they want to go in at 27.5, fine. We don't want them going lower than that because we don't want to miss trades. And to the point I heard earlier in the session, also the psyche of the staff and our customers. Everybody knows, advisors, we want to make sure that we're putting the right money on the car right up front. But if they feel like they have 500 bucks, go for it. But we don't want a culture of trying to under allow trades and then ultimately just under allow our acquisition strategy. So then we let them over allow 1,000. If they feel like they have to over allow to buy the deal to get the car on the road, good. So that's kind of our the CAP flow process of it. As far as the acquisition side of things, to get off of the auction and the enterprise side of it, we really leaned into the private party acquisition side, buying cars off the street, service drive, all the stuff that I know we've all been hearing and talking about for a long time. Back in last year, Q4, when all this was happening, we were averaging maybe 15 to 20 street purchases a month. And now it's not uncommon for us to do 75, 100, 125 a month. So in that, we're now able to peel off of those cars that weren't doing us any favors. So we have a lot of data. I think some of it may come up here, but our average front end on an auction car, and again, maybe some of it's our buying strategy, our market, whatever, but our average, we lose $700 front end on the total life cycle. We take all the cars, aging, everything, we put it all in there. On the street purchases now, since the beginning of the year, buying the right cars, using technology to do it, we average $2,200 front end. So right there is a $3,000 flip. Every car we can buy private party, in my mind, is worth $3,000 because it's one I don't have to go get at auction. So we're doing that now at big scale, 50, 80, 100, 120 a month. It's not hard to see where that front end margin can start to swing pretty quickly in your favor.
So as the technology partner, remaining curious to the innovation happening on the front line is really important. So dealers in the room, raise your hands for me. Okay, good. So I used to have, quite frankly, a little bit of imposter syndrome and shame when people said, hey, Danny, you're kind of special because you got a foot in each door. You're a dealer and then you're on the technology side. And I didn't believe them. I believe it more today. And what I will tell you is, as a dealer, you hold the power of the innovation. And when you truly treat your partners, the ones that you find that you trust, as an extension of your team and empower them to take that take that process and turn it into meaningful technology, understanding that it does take time. It's not a just do it, like my dad used to say, just build a website, right? It takes a little bit more than just build a website. But when you are persistent, because it also takes time for it to really have meaningful impact, because you may not be right the very first time you tell that technology company to go build something. It takes testing, it takes a little bit of stomach to be able to do it. And so that's been, quite frankly, the biggest gift of this partnership. And all of these processes that Kevin's talking about are processes that we are constantly working to ingest into our system so that we can make his job easier and make the results better. So let's talk a little bit more about your cap room, and if you want to share a little bit about like some of the processes that happen, and then also more about the private party acquisitions that's happening. That's right.
Yeah. So here's just a quick photo. But before, this was just a storage room. This is kind of the side room of our BDC up at our Automall corporate location. So we gutted it all out. We got big widescreen monitors, TV. You can see they got, in this case, pulled up. At any given point, there's 4 or 5 in there. You have a slow day, they might be working 1 or 2 appraisals. On busy days, there might be 15 to 30 coming through there, and they're getting them all back within 5 minutes to the frontline team. So they bounce ideas off. That first photo, we have an acquisition manager, so he's kind of overseeing it, and then they all line up here and work as a team as those appraisals are coming in.
And then, what about how have your pricing processes changed since you've centralized so that you can see, obviously, not just store by store, but all stocking in all stores in one screen?
Yeah, so part of it, just again, thinking as one big dealer group, is when the CAP team puts a car, appraisal on a car, they're already deciding which lot it's going to. If we buy a private party car, they're deciding where it's going to. So we're putting the right cars on the right lot. And pricing, before we used a lot of the data. I think one key thing we were missing was we didn't have any CRM integration. So now our pricing team, when they go in, they're looking at market day supply, how it does on our lots at different. It's funny how you move one car from one side of town to the other, and all of a sudden it sells in 3 days, and for whatever reason at the home store, it's had no action. So we like to move them around, shuffle them. But with the CRM integration, it's helped us in that we can look at opportunity counts and see what's hot, what's not. When we buy a car on private party, sometimes we'll take it in. We're already getting a flag in our CRM. Hey, somebody was there 4 days ago looking at that exact car, or vice versa. So it certainly has helped us with our pricing strategy. They're in there every day, repricing up, down, side to side. But every day they're in there looking at our group-wide pricing strategies.
And what's your average term right now at stores?
Last we checked, it was somewhere around 21 days. So when this started, we had 96 cars over 90 days old in November, December. While again, mind you, I got all of my management team again ready to vote me off, saying that this is crazy, we can't switch systems. And I'm saying we can't continue to run with 100 cars over 100 days old with the margins we are. So we're ripping the Band-Aid and we'll survive. And actually now we're here thriving. So fast forward to today, the meeting I just left, when I bring together all the managers, CAP team on a Teams call, we have 1 car over 90 days. So we've really flipped our aging over upside down its head, along with weaning off the auction. Obviously, anybody realizes the margins are going to go up through the roof when that happens. So
I'm going to pause just for a second because I don't like questions at the end. I do like questions. I want you to ask questions. But if you have a burning question now, does anybody want to ask Kevin, are you thinking like, man, I would never centralize pricing and appraising, or this is crazy?
How do you differentiate yourself in the market from to buy cars from consumers? Every dealer and their brother wants to buy cars from consumers right now. Every car lot's got a "We Buy Cars" sign out front. How do you drive traffic to this building to get leads to buy cars from consumers?
yeah, so great question. So really, it's just some all-out full court press. There's no one channel that I'd say works better than others. It's all of it. So we have a designated buying team, and all they're doing is surfing the private party market all day long through VINCUE's platform. So we're looking at just anybody out there that's for sale, Craigslist, Auto Trader, Cars.com. If they're out there, they're getting a call from us, and we're giving them all the money up front. Then we have every customer that comes through our service drive, when they leave, they get a hang tag in their windshield, hanging from the rearview mirror. They can scan it, go right to our site, get an appraisal. Once they do that, we get a lead. We're doing our own internal data mining. We market it, even mass media. Some of our cars, our shuttle cars, everything is wrapped with We Buy Cars. Pretty much everybody's incentivized to go get a private party purchase, from the service advisors, salespeople, that central team, that buying team. Separate from this, they're in a different room, and that's all they do is get appointments in to buy private party cars.
Follow with one more question, quick. Do you measure what your spend is per car that you acquire from consumers? Like $1 per car?
We haven't, because it's like pennies on the dollar. Now we pay on average out in commissions to either to that buying team or the salesperson or the advisors. On average, we pay about $220 aggregate to acquire it, but still far less than going to get an auction and shipping fee. Most of them we will rack and inspect, so fixed ops picks up some as well. because they charge us like a half-hour labor rate. So we'll rack them, inspect them really quick, so they pick up some of that. Some of the stores, whoever racks it gets the recon work, so certainly they've liked that. But the cost for acquisition is so small that if I could go and get 500 a month private party, I would. So
Yeah, I agree completely. Thanks a lot.
yeah, Jeff, thank you. Hopefully that helps.
So we walked in a couple of minutes late. I want to make sure this got answered. And of course, I understand it's a big deal to rip that Band-Aid off.
Yes.
You already given us the ROI, which it's what's the important part. My question is, working with VINCUE directly, how did they help you in that transition of ripping that Band-Aid off? Especially since there are probably some things that y'all developed together during that process. How was that process?
Yeah, great question. So, it was really about as seamless as it could have been. Certainly, we were concerned, and I got a lot of the gearheads, I say, in our company, our marketing team, our analytics team. They thought all the syndications, all of our websites were going to shut down, and we were going to be in the dark age. And as far as that goes, that really was smooth. Everything crossed over really well. I think, again, it just went back to, in the beginning, wanting to go next level, all things used cars. Danny, his team, the fact that, he is a used car dealer, he understands. So I think he made us better in just a lot of ways in his team with what and how we do things. And as far as their installation actually came out, so on his team, sent out 4 or 5 folks. They were there for 4 or 5 days. Install, meet with my managers, training one-on-one, working with this cap room. So it was an all-out full court press on the launch, and we actually expected a lot of hiccups, and it went really smooth, so that was good. Again, I know when you said, I said, when I started this, came out in November, January, my team was ready to vote me off the island. They were going right up to my dealer saying, Kevin's got to go, he wants to centralize stuff, and no longer the same platform we had used for a decade, and have there been massive hiccups, right? Like I had to shut down websites. We couldn't do central appraisal. It would have been, they were ready for it. So the fact that it was really a smoother transition really kind of helped us, I think, get that momentum a lot quicker.
So a big lesson I learned, when I had existing platforms at my store and I tried to change process, it was really hard. When you change platforms, it gives you a really unique opportunity to relook and upgrade all of your processes. Your trade appraisal process, your merchandising process, your pricing process, your acquisition process. It really gives you an opportunity to do exactly what we're talking about today, which is being innovative. The other thing that I want to pay a big compliment to Kevin on is everything you're saying, what I hear is he has a culture of acquisition. And that culture is a series of moments and a series of behaviors that equal a culture. At my store, we try to adopt and continue to, if you call my store, we say, hey, are you calling about buying a car or selling a car? Everybody asks that question when you answer the phone. And it is a small way that makes a big impact for the culture of our store because they're thinking about acquisition. Any more questions before we get to some of the more money stuff? Yeah?
No.
The question was, just so everybody could hear, any guidelines around price to market, cost to market around acquisition strategy?
Yeah, our inventory director who oversees not just the cap room, but also our new car inventory management, RDR, kind of my right hand, all of it. He keeps a pulse on it, but for the most part, we'll give them whatever latitude they need as long as the data drives them. I always like to ask, whatever we're doing, we have top 10 lists, acquisition hot lists, whatever we're doing, is the data driving us or is it, which I've been there, and we stubbed our toe a little bit going into Memorial Weekend before we had ramped up as much as we are now. We were a little light on the cars, so I said, okay, go get 80 of them. And this is me using no data, just gut and saying, go get it. And they did. And they brought in 80 cars from rental companies, and we flushed a few through the sale. And by June and July, we were losing a ton of money. So what they do is they let that data drive. So if they put a 94% cost to market in a car, because they think they can turn it at 100, 105 and turn quickly, fine. If they want to put 80%, because it's just the car we know is going to sit or something we don't typically do well with, then fine. But they're all incentivized to get as many as they can. We don't focus as much on that margin. Just get the car and either retail it, liquidate it through other channels, wholesale auctions, etc. Hopefully that answers it.
And the signals in our system are also different versus just looking at market day supply. We look at average price drop of retail transactions. The comp set is tighter. The build data on the comp set is tighter. So there's a lot of other little things that make a big impact. Speaking of impact, let's talk about results.
Yeah. So, glad to say again, standing up here, we got a long ways to go, but we have realized our increase in that $1,000 car front end that we set out on in January. So, our turn, as you already heard, has gone through the roof. Again, just having one car over 90 days is a task from where we started. Part of that turn too, we like to attest to just a smart marketing strategy. I noticed a couple of friendly faces out here. Got digital airstrike friends; they certainly help us. And then with the VINCUE system called Boost, I know we'll touch on it here in a little bit, but it's really helped us with our turn time, getting eyeballs on the units that need it, which is why we don't have cars over 90 days. At day 45, we have an action plan where we go full core press boost on that specific bin, and we're boosting it up in our market and others to make sure we get it gone before it turns day 90. So part of that's in our pricing strategy. If we feel like our price is there, then we'll start boosting it just to get more eyeballs on it.
And just to add a little bit to that, you can certainly do that on your own. The simple logic is, if you have 100 cars in the lot and you sort them by audience, you're going to have some of those cars that are going to sell because they're a low average days to sell, high demand, so forth, right? But then you have a certain segment of cars that are going to be slow movers. Waiting for them to be slow is what the killer is. You have to get eyeballs on them day one. And so finding ways to get audience to those, identifying those slow-moving vehicles at point of appraisal and that point of ingest, and starting the machine to get audience to those vehicles early is really one of the biggest ways that you can increase not only gross and turn simultaneously in those cars. And that's what we talk about, VIN-specific targeted advertising or boost.
So also, just again, they asked us for just a few KPIs here. So one of the things that we're also proud is that we are number 3 in our market. Last year that was not the case, and it might be the next slide. Maybe the talks. No, but so in Tucson, our market has retracted about 7% on used. We buy all registration VIN data, so we know that. We also have what's called the Tucson Car Dealer Association, kind of the good old boys that founded it back 50, 60 years. So they put all the numbers in, and each year the comptroller from a store kind of controls that. So we're able to see a lot of that data. And our goal was to, before we weren't even keeping pace with the market from a volume standpoint. Now we've actually increased 6% in volume, which is just kind of a side note to the strategy and the margin along with that. So a little increase in volume, better acquisition, increasing $1,000 a car, certainly it's helped our used car operations.
And something I want to add to, just to the conversation, the way we think about technology is its capabilities. I often have heard growing up, how do you like that system you use? Oh, it's great, but we only use 30% of it. There's so much there that we don't use. But why did we get that answer? It's because the technology was built without the consideration of the process, right? When, in our system, you unlock capabilities based on the user and can certify them up or meet the dealer where they are so that you can constantly enhance process, then you use 100% of the solution. And so centralization is a capability that some can say is right for me. And others can say, we don't actually use centralization, we don't need it. Others can say, you know what, I want two-hand touch. Two-hand touch means that when I appraise a car in a store, it requires another sales manager to put their eyeballs on it. Or maybe there's a trigger that if it's above $50,000, then I need two-hand touch, but anything below, I don't. The whole goal here is to be curious and innovative around what that net effect can be. How do we reach that future state of a better tomorrow? So, reasons to believe. Buying the right cars at the right price from the public Do we agree is the right thing or the wrong thing? Right thing. Significantly improve buying, pricing, and repricing with CRM integration. So what does that mean? I'll say it one more time. It is match. So CRM matches a customer to an asset, but we also need to match assets to customers, which means if I am appraising a vehicle, I can see the unmet demand in my CRM. So if I sold a car with 9 leads, 1 buys, the other 8 are unsold, when I'm appraising a car and I can see the last 30 days that I have unmet demand in my CRM, that's a signal to tell me, hey, I've got a bunch of people that I can already call that missed out on the cars that just sold. It gives my BDC something to do.
If I can, I'll touch on that too.
Yeah, please.
Again, this was a new thing for us. We've never had CRM integration with a used car platform. So this year alone, I know of at least 20. I'm sure there's a lot more that the team hasn't shared. But before, our salespeople, after that, weren't logging every used car customer, especially when they came in on a car or called in on a used car that we don't have, whatever it may be. Right? They just kind of blow through it on to the next visit and get our CRM. Now, our 70 plus salespeople are really bought in that if they don't have it, they log it and they log it very detailed so that our buying team who goes out to the private party market knows. So there's been many cases where they log in whatever it is. They want a Toyota Tundra. We don't have Toyota. We don't have one. Well, now our buying team knows, go get one because we got a lead sitting on it. So we've got cases where the salespeople log a unit we don't have. Our buying team goes and gets it. And that then flags that salesperson or that manager, and we call that person right back in and sell it. And or the other way around, we acquire a vehicle and there's a lead sitting in our CRM already existing, and we just call them and say, great news, we happen to get this, and it sells. So having that culture with the centralized team, the salespeople, going out buying cars, if a customer wants one that we don't have, it kind of starts to feed off of itself.
You mean it's a cycle?
Yes, yeah, there you go, cycle, yes. I was paying attention here, yes.
So working together as a dealer group, thank you guys very much for your time. And with that, we've got just a few minutes left if there's any remaining questions. Yeah, with Boost? Okay, so let's talk about Boost for a minute. Who here does digital marketing on cars? Okay, cool. Let me tell you how I used to do it. I'd look at my inventory, I'd see what was aging, I'd call my digital provider and say, put these cars on Facebook, on a carousel ad, spend this money on them. Then I would get a report back 30 days later on how many VDP views those vehicles got. And I was always curious, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? I wanted to know that on cars. So, but the problem was the two weren't connected, and then I would get the report, and then I would, make changes, and there'd be all this lag of time and so forth. So, what we know as an inventory management system is on appraisal, we know market day supply, we know age, we know average price drop while it's online, based on segment, price bucket, brand, submodel, all that stuff, right? And so, when you're looking at a vehicle, we can basically predict what it's going to sell for. You should be able to, in especially high demand vehicles, outperform the market by all the things you as a dealer do. So, reconditioning, certification, warranty, dealer exclusive items, right? VIN-specific targeted advertising or Boost is the ability to know the audience behavior. Meaning, Janet is shopping for a Toyota Highlander in this certain price range. We all know what retargeting is. Retargeting just means that somebody's had this behavior and now we're going to retarget them. This is not retargeting. This is targeting. So now we know this behavior over here, and on the inventory management side, what we're doing is buying that behavior and then throttling the spend. So if I have a vehicle that I know has a 40-day average days to sell and a 1,200 average price drop, what's the goal? Outperform the days to sell and conserve gross. So we start putting audience on it based on 4 filters. First filter is if it has no pictures and no price or no VIN or missing information, don't spend any money on it. But the moment that it does, get it online, match it to the behavior, start serving to those customers with that behavior. Make sense? And then VDPs start coming in, right? And then as I say shift happens, as shift in the market happens, meaning either more organic leads come in or more cars come in, then the spend is throttled. And what ends up happening is you get about a 60 cent per VDP cost. That should be about the average. Some months, 60 is probably even high. It could be between 30 and 60 cents per VDP cost. And so it's not a big spend, but you're not spending it on your entire inventory. You're only spending it on vehicles that have a slower average days to sell. Does that make sense? But you're doing it day one, not waiting for the car to age. And it's matching it on social, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, or you can do display DSPs or VLAs that kind of mid-funnel.
Yeah, so, and for us, certainly can't explain to that level, but from what I liked about it was that, again, just putting eyeballs on the cars that needed the most. So instead of taking $10,000, just kind of spreading it across our used car spend, we now back those hyper-targeted cars that need the most. So to James' point, we're seeing them flag right away. Our CAP team is seeing them. We don't have e-leads events. If they're not getting BDPs, if it's starting to age, we're boosting them right away, which is why part of why we don't have cars over 90 days now. One other thing we just experimented with that's working pretty well is, because we do luxury in Tucson, but obviously the Phoenix, Scottsdale market is far more vast. So we take some of our luxuries, like we had a Porsche that was aging at one of our lots. So we said, hey, let's take some of the boost funds and let's boost it in Scottsdale. And it sold in 2 days. We ended up going up there and delivering it. So we can get, really targeted with those stuck units to unstick them and even pump them into other markets.
And it's programmatic. I mean, you don't have to actually sit there and click boost, right? It will automatically do it, but then if you know that certain vehicle, you can override it at any time. And it's all within the vehicle file. And the cool part is it's all live reporting. So you're literally live leads, live reporting. There's no waiting on some fancy report 30 days later. You can literally just go into it and see your entire inventory both sold and active and see that performance. And then we invert it for acquisition too, by the way. Acquisition ads, same concept, except attribution is just cleaner because you take consumers who have behavior that they want to sell their car, right? Going to KBB, going to CarMax and so forth, and then serving them ads that Royal buys cars. And then when they put in that vehicle information and then they acquire that vehicle, we can track it all the way to the end because we can see where they came from, we can see what we bought it for, we can see how fast it churned, and what it grows for. And so then you can really get down to customer acquisition costs and scale it.